Hi everyone, welcome to another career development session. Today with us we've got a Wits alumni, a chartered accountant and a current business owner. Thanks so much for taking the time, Van. Do you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and your career up until just before you founded SIFT?
Sounds good, Dino. Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to talking through my story and sharing it with some of the students at Wits. So I started at Wits back in 2009 and I finished my studies, finished my honors year in 2012. So during my time at Wits, I tutored quite a bit. So I did tutoring, accounting 1, tax 3, and I was pretty keen to do academic articles, but instead of going down the academic article route and the audit route for articles, I went down the banking route. So I joined Investec in 2013 for my articles. So it was a little bit sort of bittersweet. Loved the educational side of things. I had a tutoring business while I was at university, so always loved the teaching sort of realm, but banking was a great opportunity. So a smaller program, and Investec gives you the opportunity to rotate to different divisions, so you get to learn a lot about finance, but also equities, sort of property division. So I can talk into a little bit more detail of sort of where I went at Investec. So I went through 6 different divisions. 2 of them were FM type roles, but like junior, like more controller type role. One of them was internal audits, and that was my first year and a half at Investec. My internal audit role was in the UK office, so that was super cool because I got to go to London in my first year of articles, which was awesome. So that was like great. Then came back, and the second 18 months of articles was a little bit more divisions that were maybe outside of the accounting and audit role. So I went through credit, I went through property, and I went through structured lending, which was super cool. Property was amazing, you know, something very different, and also structured lending and credit. So looking more at deal terms, loans to value, rates, structuring deals. So great exposure. But I knew, Dino and Jarred, that corporate wasn't for me. I think pretty early on in my corporate journey. You are Investec was a great place to learn, great opportunity. But coming to the end of articles, I knew that it would be a long road from there. You know, you are still starting at the bottom of a very big organization, so it's hard to change things. It's hard to innovate. It's hard to really like do things that are out of the norm, and that's why I ended up leaving at the end of my articles at the end of 2015.
Sure. Okay. And Van, you've obviously been like quite a successful entrepreneur so far, and I think a lot of CAs have aspirations of starting their own business one day. So if I can just ask you, like, when did you first think about starting your own business? When did it first come to mind? And how did you actually start with implementing the process?
Awesome, Jarred. So I actually, talking back to university, I had that tuition business that provided like tutors to high school and primary school kids. So I had a business during my time at university. So that kind of got the sort of entrepreneurship bug or fire lit, let's call it. So during varsity, I was always earning extra income, sort of tasted the benefits of owning your own business, lots of extra work, but also the benefits of all of that. Early at my time in Investec, I knew that I would want to do my own thing come the end of articles, but I wanted to stick it out, get the CA designation and finish articles. Both my folks were entrepreneurs in sort of small businesses themselves, so I'd always been surrounded by them running their own businesses and hearing that over the dinner table. And then leaving Investec, I mean, I hadn't saved a ton of money. In my 3 years of articles, I'd gone to Cape Town, I'd gone to London with Investec, so I was kind of just running on my retirement annuity that I cashed out in all my wisdom, but it wasn't a huge sum, so I thought I'd take the knock. And yeah, early 2016, I was like, I want to do my own thing. the timing worked out quite well because my brother was also doing some of his own thing, some of his own stuff at that time, and a few other friends. But I had to make money quite quickly to survive. You know, you don't have much in that forced retirement saving. So thought I had a whole lot of ideas early 2016, but being an accountant, thought let me get something that's every business needs. So I actually ended up starting a small business accounting and tax practice, accounting, tax, and payroll in 2016, just to pay the bills. I'd needed for my own business some of those skills. So yeah, I thought let me start with that, and I still had the tuition business from back in varsity days. So those two things, and that sort of developed over time. But I can talk more to that as we go along.
Okay.
Just to go back a little bit,
Yes.
when you were in CTA and juggling that tutoring business on the side, like, how did you find that balance? Because, you know, CTA on its own is already a task.
Yeah. I think it was always so. I had a bit of both. So I did a lot of my own tutoring to high school and primary school kids, but the tuition business actually probably at its peak had about 50 tutors working under the business. We also did some really cool stuff with the government in 2010. We took tutors up to Limpopo and Mpumalanga with the World Cup. High school students, matric students had missed a lot of school work, and we actually bussed 200 tutors every weekend up to Mpumalanga and Limpopo. I think varsity is a lot of work. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Your fourth year, your third year, you know, you need to pass all the subjects, and there is really a lot of pressure. But I think there also is a bit of time. You know, an hour or two a day. The business wasn't like too intense. It wasn't a full-time gig. It was a part-time type of business. So there was the ability to do that and kind of make it work. But yeah, you are giving up some weekends, some night times, waking up early. It's not all like peaches and cream out there. So you've got to really like hustle down and put in some extra hours on top of the heavy workload in CTA.
No, that's commendable.
Oh, definitely, for sure. So I know you've mentioned that obviously a lot of hours goes into it. You need to be very dedicated. But what else do you think is fundamental for people looking to start their own businesses?
Yeah, good question. I think hours, as you said, critical, and it's like that talent and hard work, Jarred. You know, it's cool. You could be like really smart, really good, but there's no substitute for the hard work that complements it. So there's definitely, I think I've been an entrepreneur now, let's say since I left my articles 2016, I'm coming up to 6 years as an entrepreneur. Lots and lots of hours put in, but I think it's also lots and lots of, like, in any business, talking to your customers could be like my key takeaway of like a single thing that you could never do too much of. You can never talk to your customers or your clients too much. Always check with them, always chat with them. It gives you great feedback. Learning from the customer is the best thing to do in any business. So you can never do too much of that. That's probably my one key takeaway in addition to the hard work.
Definitely. Okay, and then
just
yeah.
So go ahead, Jarred.
Also, just in terms of your schedule, like, can you maybe run us through like what a typical day looks like for you? Because I'm sure like early starts, late nights, it's not all sunshine and roses.
It actually gets harder over time. So I feel I've put in more and more hours every year over the last 6 years. So I'd say this year and last year have probably been the hardest years in the 6 years from like a time commitment. There's just more things to do. You know, you start a small team. I mean, in the first 18 months, it was just me. You know, I had no one to manage. I was just sort of building, firstly, that accounting practice to keep the lights on. That education business ended up transforming into a real estate education business that's sort of accredited and does a whole lot of real estate courses. And then starting a third business, which is the business that I run and manage on a day-to-day basis now, and which is my full-time focus, with those other businesses having teams and management that look after them. So it's tons of hours. I think from a schedule perspective, look, you have to have some sort of balance. I mean, there's obviously stories overseas of guys working like 80, 100-hour weeks, week on week. I think that's too much. You want to enjoy a bit of life outside of work. I've done a bit of reading on it, and guys say it's typically like at 50 to 55 hours a week, you're kind of hitting like a maximum in terms of output and efficiency. If you do more than 55 hours, you'll do more, but you'll be declining in sort of your efficiency. You'll start to get tired and you're not as effective. But like over 40 hours to 55, you're really good. So I wake up quite early, sort of start the day at 5, try get in 3 hours of work, gym, then get to the office by like 10 and sort of finish off by like 5, 6. Our business is very much a global business. So there's lots of times where we're talking to guys in New Zealand at 5 a.m. and sometimes I'm talking to someone in San Francisco at 9 p.m. So you have to accommodate that as well. And then a little bit of work on a Sunday. But I think like 50 to 55 hours is somewhere good to aim for. Tough, but days do change, and having customers overseas means you always need to be available at different times as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So another thing that interests me was, so let's just say if you've got a business idea, right, but you're more looking to start it to maybe make money instead of it being your passion, sometimes you maybe need to start to make money to start something that you're passionate about, but to find that balance, which one to go for, also like you're looking at a timeline, what would you like your input on that?
I think that's sort of what I had, with the education business and the accounting business, or the accounting practice. I wanted to try to do something that was like very innovative. So the accounting business was there to like fund another venture, and that's where the SIFT business came from. So we ended up solving a problem that the accounting practice had. It was reporting to clients, so visualizing accounting data, forecasting, board packs. So that was, in any accounting practice, you're like great at doing payroll, tax, things that need to be done, but reporting and like wowing your clients with like amazing insights kind of gets left to the end. So that's where the idea for SIFT came from. It was like solving a problem we had. And it was in a very exciting space, like software as a business, building a product instead of a service. So something that we can sell over and over again, whereas in the accounting practice, we were selling our time. So there is another entrepreneur in South Africa where when I was talking to him, he told me around, sometimes there's like a scale of the business can be very exciting, but the chance of it making money is very low. When the business is less exciting, the chance of it making money is probably a lot higher. So think of like an accounting practice or a law firm or something, there's this like correlation of excitement and chance of making money. So I think you have to balance that out. You can't just go for I don't know, the newest, most amazing, whether it's hardware or tech or bioengineering. You want to change the world, but having a bit of like realism is important. Maybe having and a lot of entrepreneurs do this, is they have like a consulting type business that they work on, and it ends up funding a product type business down the line, because now they're earning good fees from consulting, a service business, and they start building something using those profits and those earnings. So it's a good way to do things, rather than going, okay, cool, I've saved up some money, I'm going to put it all into this highly speculative product business. So I think doing both, you got to hedge your bets.
Yeah. And Van, what do you say to someone that, let's say they've thought of a business idea that they think might take off, but they don't quite know where to start? Because I think I've spoken to quite a few people that have these ideas and they have all the intentions of starting a business, but actually like transforming that into something is an entirely different story.
I think ideas are everywhere. It's the execution that counts, Jarred. So I mean, I think everyone's thought like there were guys that had the Uber idea before Uber, but executing on it is what's critical. things always take longer than you expect. So there's no overnight. It's consistency over months and years, building, allocating. When you're an entrepreneur, you've got limited time, which is probably money, but typically time is your most scarce resource. So trying to allocate that to like the highest and best use. And it can be difficult, especially to do yourself. So I would recommend having a co-founder is a great idea. Someone to work through the problems with. I think most successful businesses, like 90% of businesses, are typically 2 or more founders, not just a single founder. So having someone there to push you, to drive you, to check in, to be that idea board is probably like where to start. But yeah, actually diving in and taking the leap can be tough. So no special sort of recipe for that one.
Okay.
I mean, especially also for you, after articles, to just say, I'm leaving Investec, and you don't have that monthly paycheck anymore, and you on your own, I guess you have to sort of get something going, I guess, which maybe pushes you a bit more, but it's obviously a big risk.
It's nice to have that fire, I think, underneath you.
Yeah.
A paycheck can be quite addictive. And it's always tough. I think guys try also say, build it up on the side and keep earning the paycheck. But I mean, you get home at night, you've burnt all your best hours at work for your employer. It's very difficult to start something on the side while working a full-time job. Save up, do something initially, like in my case, something that will make money. An accounting practice will make money. Every business needs it. It's standard. It's what guys every business needs an accountant, and you're really delivering like good value. And you learn a lot by doing it. You meet businesses, you see things. So an accounting practice gave me like the insights into lots of businesses, but then it also gave me a problem that we ended up solving through our software business.
And then just going back to, completing your article, do you think going the banking route gave you an edge, throughout, these years of starting businesses, in terms of maybe seeing different industries or in different roles maybe, than it would have been had you gone the audit route or something like that?
I think different skill sets. So I did very little audits. The FM roles were quite good, because I got to see like a bit of accounting, and I got to see like reporting on a division by division basis and doing monthly management accounts, which is like similar to what our software business did down the line. It was really cool seeing like property and the terms in like a structured lending deal, and seeing businesses. I'd say the audit route would have been amazing as well. So I think working with like a younger team of colleagues, in a corporate structure, you're working with like a much older team, so there's less of a sort of vibe. The skills were good. I think audits, maybe in a small, like a second tier or small firm, or even like a big four, you would have seen lots of things as well. So I think pros and cons to both. Definitely think not enough from a curriculum perspective is done from a practical side, both at Wits and in my time in articles. I'd never used SARS e-filing. I'd never used CIPC. I'd never used like small business cloud accounting software. I think I did a little bit of Pastel in like info systems in first year, but I mean, the world is so much different, and not too many practical system things we covered in articles or in sort of the corporate world, which I think we could have done more of to prepare CA for entrepreneurship down the line.
So do you think then there's obviously room to sort of change the framework a little bit at a university level, at a articles level, to promote entrepreneurship, I guess, as well?
I think so. I think firstly at university, I think like doing more that's a little bit more practical in terms of like systems that you'll use as a small business entrepreneur, knowledge of accounting systems and tax systems. We're so good at all the theory, but like, it's like, how do you input that? Yeah. How do you tell SARS what that's about? Could be super useful. In the article training program, I mean, audit both and banking, I don't think you're going to get too much exposure to either of those. just as a nature, maybe you'll interact with like SAP and Oracle and things like that in both audit and banking. But yeah, I think university levels where it should start, just to get you thinking around systems and automation, and it's not just journal entries and debits and credits. Like the real accounting and real tax is done differently, and it's more around what the system does than sort of the theory.
Yeah. Okay. And then just to ask, so if you could give one piece of advice to yourself, if you were, let's say, 5 years back, what advice would you give to yourself?
Yeah, I'd say probably doing more coding and learning, like becoming a developer would have been good advice. I mean, 5 years ago, I'd started the businesses, so time was limited. Yeah, I think maybe going back, maybe that's a 10-year back question, learning to code, learning like more tech, things along those lines. And 5 years ago when I had started the businesses, always tough, allocating resources, time and money and people, like you don't really know what's going to be the best. So I think hedging sort of bets across businesses was good, but then seeing something take off meant that we could really like double down on it as well. So yeah, I think made some good decisions. I feel positive about my decisions 5 years ago. So I'm not too sure what I would tell 2016 Van around businesses at the moment.
Okay, and then what was the sort of like the time frame for like starting the business, seeing it grow, and then eventually take off?
Sounds good. So I'll talk more to the business that I run and that operates and that's sort of really taken off now, which is Sift Analytics. So it's a software business, reporting. We take accounting data and we help businesses make better decisions with their accounting data. So accounting data, invoices, expenses, it's so like raw and unstructured. You've got some reporting in accounting software, balance sheet, P&L, but a lot of that doesn't mean much to a business owner. They need to see a graph, they need some insights, they need some analytics on top of this data. And building a software business does take time. So when we launched, we started coding the software business in September 2016, so about 5 years ago. We launched to the public in about January 2017, so it took about 4 to 5 months.
Okay.
We just were trying to find product market fit. So we were just talking to customers. I'd be cold calling like accountants and businesses and telling them about it and just getting people on the platform using it. And that we were sort of free for 12 months and just getting feedback from these users. What do you need? What do you want? So tons of customer conversations. It probably took us about 3 years to 2019, 2.5 years live and 3 years of working on it before we really had like enough features and like product market fit. And we're doing a lot of this part-time because we had to fund it from the other businesses, do some accounting on the side, some payroll on the side, to actually earn and then stay alive. And then we really, so probably 3 years it took us to hit like a proper product market fit and scale up like exponentially from there and go from a team of like 4 or 5 people to a team of 30 2 years later. So it does take long. I think software is tricky. You could go out and raise all this funding and try to build it, but doing it slowly, talking to customers, investing in the right thing, being like resource scarce also meant we made good decisions and we allocated time and engineering and people to the right things and didn't just do like everything at once. So, but it takes long, much longer than you think. So try stay alive for as long as possible if you are building a business.
Yeah. So did you obviously then take some type of coding course to, start, or is your brother maybe in coding, or how did you get those skills?
The other co-founder, one of the other co-founders in Sift, Matthew Stefano, he's our CTO and he leads the engineering team. So when we started the business in 2016, a couple of us just sitting around, still doing all this like consulting work to earn money, but just like let's try a few things. So he's built out all of the software for the business. We're now a team of 12 engineers, so lots of computer scientists, lots of like electrical engineers, so a very strong engineering team to actually build we call it a product as like software, actually coding it, sort of doubling down and developing the product. So critical to have a technical co-founder, and that also freed me up to focus more on the revenue side of the business and the talking to the customers. So once again, they're hard to do it both. It's hard to spend 10 hours coding and then try to talk to customers as well. So fortunate to have a team around me and fellow co-founders that brought different skills to the table.
Sure.
All right.
Is there anything still on your side, Jarred?
No, I think that's about it, Sam.
Cool, man.
Sorted.
Yeah, thanks so much, Van, for your time.
Hundreds.
Really appreciate it.
I think it's very insightful. It was really great to hear from you.